warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, I'm Isnaeni, and now I will explain about the era of Reconstruction, 1865 to 1877. Based on the poster, at the first point, I will explain about restoring the onion. In the second point, I will explain about Congress and the remaking of the South, 1865 to 1866. In the third point, I will explain about Radical Reconstruction, 1867 to 1872. And at the last point, I'm going to explain about the collapse of Reconstruction. But before discussing these points, what is the definition of Reconstruction era? So, the era of Reconstruction was the period after the American Civil War from 1865 to 1877, during which the United States grappled with the challenges of reintegrating into the Union the states that had seceded and determining the legal status of African Americans. Alright, now I will explain the first point, that is about restoring the onion. In early December 1866, the President began the process of reunification by unveiling a three-part proposal known as the 10% Plan that outlined how the states would return. The 10% Plan gave a general pardon to all Southerners except high-ranking Confederate government and military leaders, required 10% of the 1,860 voting population in the former rebel states to take a binding oath of future allegiance to the United States and the emancipation of slaves, and declared that once those voters took those oaths, the restored Confederate states would draft new state constitutions. Next, I will explain about the 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment was ratified on December 6, 1865. In the aftermath of the Civil War, this amendment banned slavery in the United States, ending a barbaric system that had been legal in America for well over 100 years. 4 million people, an entire eighth of the US population, were freed as a result. Next, I will explain about Andrew Johnson and the battle over Reconstruction. Radical Republicans in Congress did not agree with Johnson's positions. They and their northern constituents greatly resented his lenient treatment of the former Confederate states, and especially the return of former Confederate leaders like Alexander Stephens to Congress. They refused to acknowledge the southern state governments he allowed. Instead, the Radical Republicans created a joint committee of representatives and senators to oversee Reconstruction. This effort put them squarely at odds with President Johnson, who remained unwilling to compromise with Congress, setting the stage for a series of clashes. Alright, in the second point, I will discuss about Congress and the remaking of the South, 1865 to 1866. Recognizing the widespread devastation in the South and the dire situation of freed people, Congress created the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands in March 1865, popularly known as the Freedmen's Bureau. The Freedmen's Bureau engaged in many initiatives to ease the transition from slavery to freedom. It delivered food to blacks and whites alike in the South and others. Next, I will explain about black coats. In 1865 and 1866, as Johnson announced the end of Reconstruction, Southern states began to pass a series of discriminatory state laws collectively known as Black Codes. These codes were designed to maintain the social and economic structure of racial slavery in the absence of slavery itself. The laws codified white supremacy by restricting the civic participation of red slaves, depriving them of the right to vote, the right to serve on juries, the right to own or carry weapons, and in some cases, even the right to rent or lease land. Next, I will explain about the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment gives citizens equal protection under both the state and federal law, overturning the Dred Scott decision. It eliminated the 3/5 compromise of the 1787 Constitution, whereby slaves had been counted as 3/5 of a free white person, and it reduced the number of House representative and electoral college electors for any state that denied suffrage to any adult male inhabitant, black or white. Alright, in the third point, I will explain about radical Reconstruction, 1867 to 1872. The impeachment of Andrew Johnson was initiated on February 23, 1868, when the United States House of Representatives passed a resolution to impeach Andrew Johnson. The primary charge against Johnson was that he had violated the tenure of office act, specifically that he had acted to remove from office Edwin Stanton and to replace him with Brevet Major General Lorenzo Thomas as Secretary of War and Interim. Next, I will explain about the 15th Amendment. In retrospect, it can be seen that the 15th Amendment was in reality only another step in the struggle for equality that would continue for more than a century before African Americans could begin to participate fully in American public and civic life. Next, I will explain about women's suffrage. By 1869, the women's movement had split between abolitionist feminists like Frances Watkins Harper and Lucy Stone, who founded the American Woman Suffrage Association, and suffragists led by Stanton and Anthony, who founded the National Woman Suffrage Association. And in the last point, I will explain about the collapse of Reconstruction. In the Reconstruction era, African Americans embraced the right to enjoy the family bonds and the expression of gender norms they had been systematically denied. Many thousands of freed black men who had been separated from their families as slaves took to the road to find their long-lost spouses and children and renew their bonds. Those who had no families would sometimes relocate to southern towns and cities, so as to be part of the larger black community where churches and other mutual aid societies offered help and camaraderie. Next, I will explain about sharecropping. After the Civil War, former slaves sought jobs and planters sought laborers. The absence of cash or an independent credit system led to the creation of sharecropping. Sharecropping is a system where the landlord or planter allows a tenant to use the land in exchange for a share of the crop. Next, I will explain about the Invisible of the South. The Ku Klux Klan was a white supremacist organization that brought the country to the Reconstruction collapse. The Klan was founded in 1866, and its first leader was Confederate General Nathan Bedford Forrest. The fraternity developed into a vigilant terrorist group that vented widespread frustration over the defeat of the war and the radical Reconstruction through acts of intimidation and violence. The Klan terrorized people who had just been freed to prevent them from exercising their citizenship and freedom. The Klan is not the only one. There are other groups such as the Red Shirt of Mississippi and the Knights of the White Camellia and the White League. Southern whites who supported Reconstruction were also the targets of these clans. In an effort to eliminate black, their tactics include entering victims' homes, being masked and armed, shooting or burning black homes. Another tactic was the threat of violence, as it happened in Mississippi when 50 members of the masked clan went to the home of a school teacher to claim that they were unhappy with the school tax and advised him to leave. Their goal was to restore white supremacy and bring the South back to the pre-war situation. Next, I will explain about Redeemer and the end of Reconstruction. The people who is committed to rolling back the tide of radical Reconstruction in the South called themselves Redeemers, a label that expressed their desire to redeem their states from Northern control and to restore the antebellum social order whereby blacks were kept safely under the boot heels of whites. They represented the Democratic Party in the South and worked tirelessly to end what they saw in the era of Negro misrule. By 1877, they had succeeded in bringing about the redemption of the South, effectively destroying the dream of radical Reconstruction. Next, I will explain about the contested election of 1876. The 1876 United States presidential election was the presidential election in which Republican nominee Rutherford B. Hayes faced Democrat Samuel J. Tilden. It was one of the most contentious presidential elections in American history. Its resolution involved negotiations between the Republicans and Democrats, resulting in the compromise of 1877. The counting of electoral votes by the House and Senate occurred, confirming Hayes as president. It was the second of 5 U.S. presidential elections in which the winner did not win a plurality of the national popular vote. Alright guys, this is the information about the era of Reconstruction. I'm Isnaeni and thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.